What's going on, YouTube friends and family? Welcome back to the channel. As promised, we're going to be getting a lot more into the house of Boadicea the Victorious, and today is no exception. We have green sapphire. Now again, I've said it in my other videos, I don't watch a ton of YouTube, but it seems like the most reviewed fragrances from the house of Boadicea the Victorious are mainly like Valiant, Neymar, and Blue Sapphire, if I'm correct. I don't see Green Sapphire and some of the others of the collection spoken about as much, but this is something that really caught my attention with the notes in it. I was commenting to one of my subscribers, and I sat on the porch watching NHL hockey one night, drinking some bourbon, and in between intermissions, I went through probably 130 of their fragrances. I believe that's about how many they have on offer. Made notes on what appealed to me the most personally, what I thought would be the best, and also what would fit in my collection. And it just so happened that from the Sapphire series, that was about half of them. I mean, Night of Love, Al-Sif, Hanuman, King of the World, Faith, Dasman. Those were some of the other ones, including Pearl Moon, which I've just reviewed, that really caught my attention that I plan on buying. But a lot of them were from the Sapphire collection. I mean, Violet Sapphire, Tobacco, Aqua, Blue, and of course we have Green Sapphire here. Now this fragrance, man, it is extremely dense and complex. And looking at the notes, you always have an idea of kind of what you're gonna expect, but you never know how they're really gonna blend these ingredients. And Boadicea uses a lot of oud in their fragrances. And I'm not just talking about the amount of fragrances from Boadicea that have oud in them. It is a very Middle Eastern influenced brand. But I'm talking about the actual amount of oud they put into these fragrances. So check this out. The notes on Green Sapphire: raspberry, saffron, violet leaves at the top. Heart notes, they just list pine, and there is a good amount of pine in there. And I feel like the pine that they listed in the heart notes is more to kind of freshen up and lift up the very heavy and woody base notes. So you have oud, amber, cedarwood, and sandalwood, which is very interesting because you do get some of the sandalwood, but the main base notes, at least to my nose, and when I wear this on skin, is the cedarwood and the oud. You get a very dense, earthy, smoky, resiny. I mean, it is just a beautiful dry down, but you also get, because those base notes are so strong, you get them off the first spray. And it is very interesting to me how they blended this. The raspberry, I don't know if I would really ever pick it up if they didn't list it in the top notes. It's not something that you spray and you automatically think raspberry. I did do a light spray on the back of my hand. I'm not sure if the oil slick on there is coming through. A great place for testing fragrances on the back of your hand. Not a great place for wearing them for longevity. You're always gonna be washing your hands throughout the day. Again, some people put perfume on the underside of their arm. I'm not gonna tell you that's wrong, but at the same time, I'm always putting my arm down on something, whether I'm resting it on the center console of my car, at the desk answering emails or something like that. My arm's always kind of gonna be rubbing that fragrance off. So for me, I always put the fragrances on the top of my forearm and the crease of my elbow, and maybe a couple sprays on my chest underneath my shirt, and maybe one or two on my neck or something like that, just depending on the fragrance. But wear your fragrance how you like it. But if you're having problems with longevity, I would recommend making sure your skin is hydrated after getting out of the shower. Whatever like lotion or moisturizer you use, I use grapeseed oil, and then let it dry, and then spray your fragrance on top of your forearms. I get a ton of longevity and projection out of it that way, and you don't really have to worry about the fragrance rubbing off that much. So but this fragrance is just very interesting. They said on the website that Green Sapphire was supposed to represent a British woodland coming into spring, and you get that. You get some very heavy woody notes. Again, it's like fresh cut cedar, very heavy on the oud, pine, and that pine really does help freshen up and lift up some of those base notes, and you just get a very complex fragrance. And I almost hate comparing anything to one another. You have certain fragrances that you can compare easier just because some of the notes are similar, but the vibe overall, the vibe that this fragrance gives me is like a more Middle Eastern version of the original Green Irish Tweed from Creed. And the notes are not the same. Creed, I believe it's got lemon and verbena in the top notes. It has ambergris in the base. It doesn't have any oud in there. So they're not the same, but they do give a very similar vibe. And also I would say that this one, the Green Sapphire, just for reference point, if you've smelled both of the fragrances, it would almost be like a combination of Green Irish Tweed from Creed and the original 4-ounce bottles, and then maybe a little bit of Governor's Island from Bond Number 9 mixed in there because of the heavy resinous and wood and oud notes in Governor's Island. And man, this fragrance is a lot more than that. I'm just trying to give you guys something to maybe compare if you're looking for the vibe of the fragrance of maybe 2 other fragrances that have been around for a while that you may have put your nose on. But yeah, man, this stuff is incredible. Certainly powerful enough to wear during winter time, but for me, this is more of a spring and summer fragrance. In fact, it's definitely going to be on one of my upcoming videos of some of the best green fragrances in my collection. And, you know, Beach Hut Man will be on there. Gramercy Park will be on there. I don't want to spoil it, but you can probably bet that Holly Seam from the Xerjoff Chemi Blue line will be on there as well. This stuff is just a masterpiece. And, you know, I said it earlier in my video, but as you start getting more into fragrances and more into these luxury houses, very expensive houses, you kind of wonder, you know, why is the price the way it is? You know, part of that is the reason they just want to keep some people away. And that really is the honest truth. It may sound funny, but the price alone kind of makes it into a different category, into a luxury item where it's not meant for certain types of people, like people that are just getting into fragrances, a little bit more casual. A lot of people who are just getting the fragrances have probably never even heard of the house of Boadicea the Victorious. You know, it's not really at any local malls here. You're not going to find it for a lot of places. You're not going to find it like a Sephora or something like that. So it's not run of the mill. But for me, what I've smelled from the house of Boadicea the Victorious so far, what really sets them apart and really kind of helps justify their price is you notice that they, in a lot of fragrances, use oud, and a lot of fragrances can use the, you know, term oud and say they have it in there, but they're probably not putting a lot in. They're, you know, maybe not even a quarter of a milliliter, if that, and then they just put it in there just to say that the fragrance has oud. When Boadicea lists oud as a note, you get it. Like, you really do get it. You smell it. Very, very dense. You know, who knows how much they're actually using, but it is very heavy. Again, when you first spray this, you would expect, because it's in the base notes along with the cedar, sandalwood, and the amber, that would be something more on the dry down, but no. Kind of similar to Xerjoff Ether, not in terms of how they smell, but right from the first spray, as soon as you spray it on, you get that heavy note of oud, that smoky, resinous, earthy, woody type of smell. It's just absolutely beautiful. And that's part of the reason why they're charging the price that they are, is because they're actually using real oud and they're using quite a lot of it. So it's not something to where you really have to worry about. If they list oud as a note, you can almost believe, especially from the fragrances that I've tried, that you're going to get the note of oud. And they're actually using a lot of that oud oil in there, which is extremely expensive, depending on where you get it from. I know that there are some points in time, and it may even be true now, that oud per weight was worth more than gold. And, you know, that's just showing where the fragrance community is going. Ambergris is very similar. It's becoming more rare and more expensive. And I think Boadicea has 1 or 2 fragrances with ambergris. I'm going to have to look that up and see which ones those are. If you know which ones they are, listen in the comments to help me out. But again, yeah, very expensive fragrances. They get a lot of hate for that, but they're meant to be that way. You know, they set themselves apart for that reason. And they can justify the price through the packaging and through the ingredients they put in there. But this is definitely more for like collectors and people that really, you know, are into that niche luxury perfume market. You know, people who collect Boadicea, Raja Parfums, Henri Jacques. And I say Henri because if you ever follow French football, you know it's not Henri Jacques, it's Henri. I don't care how they say it, it's gotta be Henri. Thierry Henry, one of my favorite soccer players, but yeah, it was so funny hearing some Americans pronounce his name. You know, they said Thierry Henry or Thierry Henry, but it's, yeah, Thierry Henry was the soccer player for France. Great player and great commentator now too. So little side note, big soccer fan. Don't know if you guys are as well. But guys, Boadicea, Beautiful house, great stuff. Is it worth the money? That's pretty much up to you as a buyer. If you don't want to buy them, don't worry, they're not having any problems selling any bottles. In fact, right now, Green Sapphire on their website is out of stock. So if you guys want to know where I buy my fragrances for Boadicea, it's one of those things to where I have a trusted eBay seller on eBay. The name is Oler.beauty, and they're actually a Hallburg store in the United Arab Emirates selling on eBay under that name. They actually send them in the Hallburg boxes, and they are a legitimate seller for Boadicea the Victorious. So when you buy them, just make sure that you do your research, but they are certified seller on the side of Boadicea the Victorious. So guys, I'll be seeing you soon. I got a lot more content coming for the channel, and hope you have a great weekend, all right? Bye.